this week concludes week 10 of online teaching or distance learning. I don't even remember what to call it anymore because there's so many different names for the same thing, but basically this was our last week of online instruction. So if you saw my previous video, I did it vlog style. I had everything set up and scheduled and ready for this week, last week, so I didn't have anything planning wise to do. All I've been doing this whole week has been grading. So since this week was a very unexciting, I decided that for this video, instead of recapping this very boring week, that instead I would talk about what I would keep the same if we have to do online learning again next year. One thing that I would do again next year is video updates. So I've been sitting down just like this and letting my students know what's going on, if anything has changed, whatever updates that they needed. And a lot of them found that to be very helpful, and I liked to do it just because it helps maintain a bit of a connection. It's one-sided, like they still get to see my face and hear my voice. I don't get the same thing from them unless they're like in office hours or something. But I just found it to be very helpful, and students found it helpful as well. In the same vein, I want to make sure that next year I'm giving students like very repetitive directions. So sometimes they'd get directions through video. They always had directions on the assignment that pops up in Google Classroom, and then they had directions for the assignment on a slide every day, and then they also had like a weekly overview slide, so they were seeing and hearing what it was that they were supposed to do 3 or 4 times for each day that they had work to do. And it is like a little bit of extra work for sure to put all the slides together and everything, but it helped me just be very clear and focused on what I was telling my students. And then it helped them because they're able to see the directions in a few different ways. So whichever way worked best for them was what they were using to figure out what to do. I mean, you know how it is in the classroom. They don't always read the directions that are like at the top of a worksheet, let's say, or when you're doing an activity and there's like directions right there, they don't read them. So it's hard because online they need to read directions and actually follow them to be successful. So I just found that having multiple ways of explaining things was very helpful. Now, I very rarely did videos explaining anything. It was really only when it was something very complicated or something new that I sat down and made a video to explain what to do. Another thing that I did to help maintain connection with my students was putting out weekly surveys. So every week I set up a survey in Google Forms and just asked like very simple questions like, how are you doing? I would ask more fun questions like, what was the best thing that you binge watched during quarantine, or what was the most interesting thing that you learned this week? And I also asked questions that would guide what we were doing for online instruction. I remember the one time I got to the point of asking them, would you guys rather that I give you longer assignments like every other day instead of like these little assignments every day? And when they said that they'd rather have like every other day assignments, was the same time that our school announced a schedule where they wanted us basically posting every other day. So gathering information through a survey was very helpful, and it was good because I always included a question that said, is there something that you want me to know that I didn't ask about? And there I was getting information from students about what was going on for them personally, and it was just good to know because the hardest part of all of this is that I'm not seeing them in my classroom every day, and I don't know if something's wrong because I'm just getting assignments from them and maybe a comment here and there, or maybe an email here and there, but never just like the same kind of feedback that you get from like looking at a student and seeing their facial expression, or just even knowing that, you know, the student has not come to school in a week, there must be something wrong. Like, we don't know. Some students just haven't been turning anything in, so it's just frustrating to not know. It's been the hardest part. But having that survey's been super helpful. I have to find like a better incentive to do the survey, and maybe it just wound down over the past few weeks because it's the end of the school year and I stopped asking questions about what could we do differently for online learning because we got into our groove. But just try and make sure that it's still something that's helpful to them in the survey. I also asked questions that were along the lines of, did you see this video that I posted explaining how to use Desmos, or something like that, just to make sure that they were aware of the resources that were available to them. The last two things that I'd want to do the same are my Sanity Savers. So the first one was scheduling all of my assignments in advance. So the way Google Classroom is set up, you can just like post an assignment, or you could schedule it ahead of time. And I did that for all of my classes this entire time. It is annoying because if you just straight up post an assignment, you could post to multiple classrooms at the same time. If you're scheduling assignments, you have to go to each individual class and schedule it. So that part was frustrating because if I could just check off boxes to post, why can't I do the same thing to schedule? But scheduling in advance just helped me like relax, because I told students, you know, I'm gonna have your stuff up 8 a.m. every day, or whatever days I was posting. So it helped to be consistent, and rather than me having to worry about, is my son gonna be like awake and throwing a tantrum at 8 a.m. that's gonna prevent me from posting, I didn't have to worry about it because Google Classroom did it for me automatically. There was a week or two where it was not posting on time. Like I post everything at 8, like I said, and assignments went up like closer to 8:45, but that was short-lived. It only happened that one or couple times, and then it's been fine ever since. And it doesn't post right at 8 o'clock. It posts like 8:05-ish, somewhere in there, so it's not bad, but certainly not as bad as that one time it posted super late. The last thing that I would repeat if we're doing online learning again is just setting strong boundaries around my time. So at the end of the day, I would close my computer if I could, depended on how the day was, but I would basically just shut down the computer and not look at my email. I have all my email notifications turned off on my phone, my iPad, and everything else. So if I ever saw an email from work, it was because I got an email like to my personal email and just happened to have all the inboxes open. But I never responded to emails after hours, and I would certainly do the same thing again. And the same thing with comments in Google Classroom. I'd get notifications for those from the app, but I wouldn't go and check them or respond to them until the next school day. So I was really only actively available during school hours, and once school hours were over, I was just trying to step away from all of it, and that helped my sanity so much. There's definitely things that I would do differently, but I'm honestly just not ready to reflect on them right now. I want to basically close down the school year and have some time to decompress before really going through and thinking about that. But I wanted to make sure that I kind of did this video for me, to be honest, that I knew what I wanted to do again, what worked this time around. Some things that I would want to fix is finding ways to have students show their work, and office hours were not a whole disaster, but like no one ever showed up or attended, so they were just kind of pointless for me. So those are things I'd want to think about later in the summer. And right now, like today's our last day of online classes, but we still technically have 2 weeks of school as teachers. Next week is all grading. It's the students' grace period to turn stuff in. And then the week after that, it's just like tying up loose ends, helping guidance contact students that are going to summer school. And there's some festivities for our graduating seniors. And we're kind of just on call in case the school needs something for that last week. So it's not going to be a whole lot. It's not like I have to plan anything, but I'm still technically in school for another 2 weeks. So with that being said, I'm going to resume my usual YouTube posting schedule because I've posted every week since this has been going on, and some weeks I posted twice. So I'm going to take a little break for the rest of June. I won't post any new videos, and when I come back in July, I'm expecting that I'll probably be back on that every other week schedule that I'm usually on. So that's everything for this. I almost said the school year, but that's everything for this video. As always, thanks for watching.